Hey guys, if you're looking for some specific warm-up ideas to add to your routine, this video is for you. In the last video, we covered a general template and overview of my warm-up routine and the things that I focus on. If you want to check that out, the link to that video is below. This video is going to cover specific movements and give you some ideas that you can add to your warm-up. So, let's get started. So, you've done your cardio warm-up already, and now you're moving on to your hips and shoulders. These are some of the movements that I do. So let's start with the shoulders. I know. I've hammered it a dozen times, but I'm a big believer in crossover symmetry. It works. It works. I start all of my training sessions with it, and I'm not gonna take you through the full protocol of the shoulder unit. I do the activation protocol to start off my warm-up. For every crossover symmetry unit that you get, it comes with a ton of info. So grab yourself a unit, there's a link below. It'll give you all the information that you need to properly go through the routine and get the most out of your crossover symmetry unit. But with that said, a couple of the things that I focus on when doing crossover symmetry is making sure that my scaps are pulled back and down, really making sure that my shoulders are down so everything is loaded on the shoulder joint. And what that looks like is when I extend my arms, not having my shoulders shrugged, but instead pulling them back and down, and then extending my shoulder joint as much as possible at the same time. So I'm trying to make as big of a circle or loop with my arms as possible. The whole idea is to stabilize the shoulder, make sure you pull your shoulders back and down. But if you cannot get your hands on a crossover symmetry unit and it's just not available to you, here are some other things that you can do with just your basic resistance band. You can pick these up on Rogue Fitness site. There are a lot of movements that you can do with this to make sure that your shoulder is nice and warmed up. I think the most basic one to start with is the band pull apart. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna make sure that my shoulders are pushed forward, my scaps are pulled back and down. I'm gonna draw a big circle with that. I can also work on the rotator cuff by stepping on the band and anchoring it. Again, everything that I do when I'm working on my shoulders, I wanna make sure that my shoulders are pushed down. I'm not engaging with my trap. I don't want my trap to be doing the work. I want my shoulder to be doing the work. So pull my trap down, and then here I can just rotate. Another one that you can do, if you anchor it down, is reach across your body and lift it up, almost doing like an X motion. I think Genesee called this the cheerleader. Another one I like to do with the resistance band, if I'm out on the road or something, I don't have my crossover with me, is just reaching out in front and warming up the front of the delts, coming up, spreading apart. Also with the resistance band, you can do some pass-throughs with it. I think this is a really good option because it adds some tension, but it also gives you the space if you lack in mobility. You can get a little bit less resistance so you can do a pass-through. And then, my favorite thing that I've mentioned 100 times, you could do overhead holds with a resistance band. This is a great way to get the shoulder muscles engaged. And then if you want to work on your mobility, you can even start to just bring your hands in a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, until you get less and less resistance and you're the one doing the work. There are also some great stretches that you can do that you can make a little bit dynamic and activate shoulder muscles with. One of my favorite ones is to pull across my body, and I'm gonna pull as far as I can get at the end range of motion, and then I'm gonna push back against this hand. So with the arm that's straight, I'm gonna push my straight arm forward against the arm that's vertical. And as I do that, that's gonna activate the muscles in the rear of my shoulder. Do that for 5 seconds, and then relax for 5 seconds, stretch a little bit further, push against again, 5 seconds, off 5 seconds. Another great one is going up overhead. And once I'm back here in an end range of motion, as far as I can go, I'm gonna pull my elbow back against this hand that's holding it back. And then I'll stretch out my lat and underneath my shoulder a little bit. Do it on the other side. Oh, now my shoulders are good, loose and ready to go. All right, let's move on to hips. Again, Huge fan, Crossover Symmetry. Their hip halo is awesome. It has great resistance, as well as this is nice and soft on your legs, doesn't pull your leg hairs. Ladies, it's a problem that we deal with, all right? So it's nice. One of the main things that I focus on whenever I'm warming up my hips is making sure that I have good external rotation and a firm base in everything that I'm doing, as well as make sure that my core is tight. I don't want a loose core because I want my hips and my glutes to be doing most of the work, so I'm warming those muscle ups. So keep a nice braced core. I'm not gonna run you through the whole hip protocol, but again, if you get one of the hip halos, it gives you a ton of information and a sheet with the whole protocol that you can follow along with. Great tool, highly suggest it, links below. So again, I'm gonna keep a tight core, knees externally rotated, and a firm base. And right now, I can feel the muscles in my hip flexors, in my glutes, hamstrings, all getting warmed up. It's not super strenuous, which is nice, but they're activated. They're starting to warm up. And I'm letting my body know that it's like, you need to get ready to work. We're gonna put you to work here. Some other great ways to warm up your hips are just some basic body weight movement. One of my favorite ones to do, sometimes I have to have like a brace or something because I don't have the balance, but you start standing, just raise your knee. This actively engages your hip flexors, and then go through some motion of opening your hip and then closing it and activating all the muscles required to engage the hip. You could reverse it. Also, a lot of great movements you can do laying on the floor. A lot of these movements, what you want to focus on is rolling forward a little bit so you engage your glute med. Focus on starting the motion with your heel first. I don't want to be leaned back because now I'm just doing everything in my hip flexor. Roll forward and drive with your heel first, and that will engage more of your hamstring and your glute. So you can raise your leg up, you can bring your leg forward. You can do hip circles. In any of these cases, I would do something like 10 reps per movement and just move through a variety of them. Whatever you need to do to just add movement to the ball and socket joint. And while I'm down here, this is one of my favorite 90-90. And what I'm gonna think about doing here is I'm gonna lean forward and drive my knee into the ground. When I do that, it activates everything in my glute. I'm gonna hold that for 5 seconds. And then I'm gonna think about pulling my chest to my knee. And then one of the other things that I like to do is lean back. And as I lean back on my legs, I'll push against the ground. It opens up my hip flexors and stretches my quads. I can feel a great stretch here as it activates my glutes as well. Hold that for 5 seconds, relax. Always thinking about keeping a tight, braced core throughout everything that I'm doing. A simple way to do that, standing up, if you don't have the flexibility to do that on the ground, and do it this way, just push against your hand. Or if you don't have the flexibility to grab your leg that way, you could find like a wall ball. That was convenient. And you can do it on the ground here. This position doesn't take as much flexibility. So now what I'm gonna think about doing is pushing my leg against the wall ball as I lean back, bracing my core. I'm gonna push against the wall ball for 5 seconds, relax. So after I have finished warming up my hips and my shoulders, I move on to more workout specific movements. A good example of that is anytime that I need some wrist mobility, whether it be getting into a front rack or having an overhead position, I'll work on these few things to warm up my wrist. First, to start standing up, if you don't have a lot of flexibility in your wrist, a great way to start is standing. Just pull your wrist back, and what you're gonna do is extend your arm out, and you'll start to feel a stretch in your forearm as you extend your elbow. And then I like the proprioception of actively engaging the musculature in my forearm. Now I'm gonna engage against the hand that's holding my fingers back. I'm gonna pull my fingers back, hold that for 5 seconds, and then go deeper into the stretch. I can also do this on the ground. If I flip my wrist around this way and then lean back, pushing my fingers away from the ground, hold that for 5 seconds, do it a couple times. And then for anything that requires some overhead positioning or overhead mobility, I'll usually do some sort of an isometric hold. So if I'm doing handstand push-ups, I'll kick up against the wall and I'll hold that for a little bit. And I'll hold that position upside down for 15 to 30 seconds or so. And then also if I'm doing something like the snatch or some clean and jerks, I'll hold a barbell overhead and do an isometric hold that way. I also did a video on overhead mobility where I go into some specific things that I do for my overhead position. The link to that is below. And then also for any workout or any movement that requires some ankle mobility, whether that be box jumps, rowing, any sort of a squat, anything that requires some ankle mobility, I've also done a video on that and some of the specifics that I go through in order to mobilize my ankles. The link to that is also below. And then for any of those movements that require your lats to be stretched out and mobilized as well, I will do this stretch with the band. I'll put it up on the rig, loop my hand into it, take a step back, and same arm, same leg goes back. And I'll work through just the range of motion, do some twists, push away and pull, just engage those muscles in there. This is good for any of those movements, for pull-ups, chest to bar, toes to bar, or muscle ups of any sort, anything that needs your lats to be nice and warmed up. And also I like to, if I'm doing muscle ups, if I'm doing pull-ups, anything like that, I love to get on a bar, let myself get as long as possible and feel it stretching through my lats, and then I'll just lean to a side, actively engaging the scap to pull myself over to the next side. And then sometimes a more progressive way to do this is to engage one shoulder and then slowly let go with the other hand. Reach back up, do it again. Reach back up. You can really feel all the muscles in your lat and your shoulder engaging. It's a great way to get warmed up for those, again, pull-ups, chest to bars, muscle ups. All right, guys, I hope that gives you some really good ideas to take into your warm-ups and make your routine a little bit better. But if you're still looking for a more general template to use for your warm-up, go check out the other video we did on warming up. There we also announce a giveaway, so go check it out if you want to enter in for there. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.